I know that he did not commit suicide.
She claims someone wanted to shut him up.
This huge bang happened. A white cloud went through the plane. I thought I was gonna die.
I literally saw people jumping on the pieces of the airplane to get them to align.
We had to do an emergency landing.
Do you think the public should be concerned about getting on a Boeing aircraft?
My name is Dr. Sean Perchnicki. I'm a former airline pilot and aviation safety expert. After the issues at Boeing started to come to light, I was actually quite shocked. Window fracturing, and most certainly the Alaska Airlines fuselage plug blowing out. These are extremely concerning occurrences. When I had first met Sam Salapur, the Boeing whistleblower, I had found him to be extremely intelligent. He is truly worried about people being hurt or injured. I was probably the most gobsmacked about his description on the assembly line of the 787 Dreamliner, where employees trying to get the fuselage together to lock by jumping on it. I have never in my career ever heard of this is how you get airplane parts put together. Another thing I heard was Sam talking about how he was threatened by his bosses. That's absolutely unbelievable. I've never heard of anything like this in the industry. If Boeing continues to operate like this year after year after year, then the danger only continues to increase.
Well, Dr. Sean Perchnicki is here. And Sean, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You've been a pilot for 10 years, and you say it's normal, obviously, for airplanes that have been in service for a long time to have malfunctions. That doesn't make them unsafe, just maintenance goes up, right?
That's correct.
And the accident rate is 0 in the last 15 years, but you're still shocked by some of the whistleblower testimony.
Yeah, very much so. Some of the things were indeed quite shocking. The one that we just saw in the clip where people were on the assembly line jumping on parts to get them to fit properly is, in fact, not how we build airplanes. That's not how we function in aerospace.
Why would that be? If that in fact is occurring, why would that be? Obviously, the last person in the world that would want a Boeing airplane to go down would be the people on it. The second group of people that would want it to go down would be the manufacturer. So they're not stupid. Why would they do something to compromise the integrity of the aircraft?
There's numerous reasons why this is happening, but the bottom line is this is coming down to money. There was a time when we built airplanes and then made money. This perspective has very much changed. Now it's about making money, and you happen to build airplanes.
I've been a pilot since I was like 17. I've been a consultant for the Airline Pilots Association. I've investigated airline crashes a number of times, testified with the NTSB Sunshine Committee for different airlines. So I've been involved in a lot of investigation of these crashes. And there are a lot of reasons that go into why airplanes go down when they go down. It's unusual that an aircraft just stops flying and falls out of the sky. There's always a human factor involved, there's weather involved, there's all kinds of things you look at. But one of the rarest things is that a wing falls off or something, and an airplane just falls out of the sky. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that is very much a fair
These are
statement.
pretty tough machines.
They are very tough machines, and they're built to be very resilient, and they have a lot of redundancy built into them.
Right.
The concern is that tremendous safety margin that we have built into those machines is definitely starting to erode, and that we don't want to take away from that safety margin. And all evidence is indicating that that's very much is what is happening.
Do you think the public should be concerned about getting on a Boeing aircraft?
I think it's important not to scare people per se, but for everyone, the industry and the general public to be aware that corners are being cut at the expense of making more money. And there's all types of evidence to support that.
So what should be happening safety-wise that's not happening at Boeing? Is this to the point that these aircraft should be recalled? Should they be grounded until further inspection? What's your recommendation?
So the several things that need to be done is, Boeing needs to regain their safety culture. They basically do not have a safety culture.
Well, they were self-inspecting for a long time.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that was put in place by the FAA in the early 2000s. But that concept is kind of the fox guarding the hen house, if you will, where the people that were designated by the FAA to watch the internal process, their paychecks come from Boeing.
That's what I mean. It wasn't the fox guarding the hen house. The fox was in there actually frisking the hens. They were doing their own safety inspections.
Right, like we saw with the door blowout at Alaska Airlines, when NTSB went in to look at this with the FAA, it was amazing how they couldn't just seem to find the records behind the installation behind that door. All of a sudden, the paperwork couldn't be found. So it's about finally starting to recapture a safety culture, and partly equally as important is regaining an engineering culture. You have to listen to your experts on the floor, and the people that design the airplanes, not the people up in the money room.
Did you fly here?
Yes, I did, yeah.
What airplane?
A Boeing.
Where'd you sit?
1A, right by the exit.
Did it give you concern?
It really didn't give me concern. I was aware of the aircraft I was on, where normally I do not pay attention.
The more I look into this Boeing thing, the more disturbing the information becomes.
Hey, so what's up with planes? Like, tires falling out of the sky, right from the plane, doors being ripped off the hinges mid-air.
Use search features like this on Kayak to filter out the problematic Boeing airplanes.
Now, I'm joined by aviation analyst Mike Boyd, aviation litigation consultant Richard Levy, and Allied Pilots Association representative Captain Dennis Trager. Now, Dennis, you say it used to be, if it ain't Boeing, I'm not going. So what's changed?
Boeing has changed. I flew on Boeing aircraft in the military, in combat, where Boeing saved my life and protected me from the enemy outside the airplane. Now I feel like the enemy's within. And I fly the 737 NG and the MAX, the one that tragically crashed 2 times and took 346 lives. And we've learned about all that Boeing did. You're a pilot, you get it. You tell me what's on my airplane. It's up to me to learn about it, train to it, and how to deal with it if it malfunctions. Why is that important? Because it saves lives.
What's happening at the factory that makes this something that you have a different attitude about than you used to?
Airplanes are not IKEA furniture. When they don't match up, you can't just press them down and then jam a bolt in there. There are implications down the line on these intricately built aircraft. So what's happened is the layers, that safety margin, Boeing has reduced what it's doing, changed the way it's done business. Over a period of 20 years, they focused more on shareholder returns and dividends than they have on engineering excellence and quality of production. And we've seen the results.
And Richard, you say you're not buying that they're jumping on airplanes, jamming parts and pieces in.
Well, Dr. Phil, it was testified. I can't go against testimony, but I would imagine if somebody saw another person at the Boeing factory or Airbus jumping up and down, that would have caught the attention of supervisors there. So if they testified, then they did see it, but that's not the exact way to build and manufacture an aircraft.
You know, Boeing actually calls it force up fit. Force up fit. Think about it. Forcing the airplane to fit together. I'm not an engineer, but man, I hope you looked at the implications of that before you put that on a line and people flew on it.
Mike, you say Boeing has gone to rot. Has it gotten that bad?
Oh, yeah. They're more concerned with making money. They're more concerned with the stock price. They don't have a product. This is the big thing people have missed. It's our biggest exporter. They do not have a follow-on product. The Boeing 737 MAX 10, that's their future. It's 2-3 years delayed. Boeing could be the next RCA, which is just a name and not much else. So I think for America, it's more than just the airplanes. It's an issue of the entire economy of the nation being affected. Boeing is a company that needs to be completely restructured. Mr. Calhoun should not leave at the end of the year. He should leave this afternoon because this place has been wrecked. This is America's economy at stake.
Well, are these airplanes that are out there now flying, are those aircraft unsafe?
It's safe to fly out there. But what's happening now, unlike any time I've ever seen in my career in aviation, is that we have all this commercial pressure. We have a manufacturer that's failing to provide an aircraft that's properly assembled and engineered. We have a lot newer workforce out there. So we have all of these pressures happening at the same time. The last line of defense, your professional pilot, is going to keep it safe. But we're telling the world, you're really pushing the edge here.
That's why I wonder if people are overreacting, not saying that there shouldn't be corrections, not saying that there shouldn't be a restoration of engineering and safety margin built back in, but it doesn't mean that this fleet should be grounded, or does it?
These airplanes are safe the way they're flying today. Boeing has problems, no question about that. Can it be safer? Yes. And is Boeing putting together airplanes properly? No. End of discussion.
And to add to that, I think it's very important about how the media is sensationalizing.
If the flush lever doesn't work on a 777, it's a Boeing story.
The key part of this is maintaining the aircraft that you have to a safe level. We're flying older airplanes longer, which is safe, but you have to bring up your game and maintain them. And maintenance is now 40% more expensive than pre-pandemic. There is a commercial interest to do what you can. We have a saying in the cockpit, maybe you use this, Dr. Phil, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's safe or smart. Yeah. And that's the demon we're battling right now.
After working for Boeing for 32 years, John Barnett became a whistleblower, accusing the company of cutting corners and using substandard parts to build planes. Now, he claimed he reported his concerns to management and was ignored. Barnett was in the midst of a legal dispute related to his whistleblowing when he was found dead in his car. His lawyer said there was no indication that he would take his own life. His mother, Vicki, and his brother, Rodney, join us tonight, along with John's attorney, Robert Turkowitz. Now, Rodney, you did not see any indication that John was suicidal, correct?
No, sir, none at all. He had plans to go out. He was going to meet for pizza dinner. I mean, he was doing things around his house, finishing projects. There was no indication that anything like this would happen.
No depression, no desperation?
No, sir.
He was in the midst of a deposition in his whistleblower retaliation case. Was that pressure getting to him in any way?
He was there 2 weeks. He was supposed to just be there a week. He was just ready to come home.
Right. What's your theory about this?
John was excited about having his deposition completed, and we had a trial date. This thing has been going on for 7 years.
Right.
The first day, he was deposed for 7 hours by Boeing's lawyer, and it went all day into early evening, and John was very tired. And we wanted to question him as to the facts that would show that he was subjected to a hostile work environment. We started the deposition late morning, and after 4 hours, he was very tired. And I was thinking that maybe we need to stop the deposition and finish up maybe a couple of weeks later. Now, you have to know, he was suffering from PTSD and was also having anxiety and panic attacks as a result of the hostility that he endured at Boeing. So at that point, I said, let's just go ahead and recess the deposition and we'll come back. And Boeing came back and said, if they do that, we're going to object to any additional depositions taken until his deposition is completed. And just at one point, John just said, let's just get her done. I'll come back here tomorrow morning and we'll get her done. And the next morning, it was just a really terrible morning. In fact, when people ask what happened, I say, well, it was the worst day of my life, that's for sure. I tried to get in touch with John and tried to see if he needed a ride or wanted to ride with me, and I couldn't get him on the phone. So when I got to the deposition at 10 o'clock, we're sitting at the conference table, and John wasn't there. So I tried calling him. I talked to the hotel and asked if they could do a check, a welfare check, and see if he's still there. Maybe he overslept. He wasn't there. And then finally, I said, would you go out and see if his truck is there? The manager came back on the phone and said, The truck is there, and we called 911. And we sat there for an hour trying to contact back to the hotel and find out what was going on. And finally, everyone, including Boeing's attorneys, we all went to the hotel. And that's when we learned the devastating news.
Well, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Mitch spent 32 years devoted to Boeing, the people he supervised, and the flying public. And I believe to this day I would have my son if Boeing had done the right thing when he first told them what was going on. They wouldn't listen. But he would be here today supervising the next generation on the correct way to build planes if Boeing had just stepped up and done the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a theory as to what happened?
I think he was just pushed so hard that he just finally broke. It was just relentless, and it weighed on his mind heavily. I asked him one time, I said, why don't you just drop this? You know, just let it go. It's like David and Goliath. You can't beat them. And he said, if one of those planes went down was because of something I didn't say, I'd never live with myself. So it was just a mission for him.
So do you think maybe the pressure got to him and he did take his life?
Well, something happened. I don't know what it was, but...
I could tell you one thing. He was really concerned about some of the defects, the problems that he had reported. And up until that day, he felt like he did not get answers. He was not assured that the issues were taken care of. Like, for one thing, we talked about the oxygen masks. He discovered that through testing that 25% of the oxygen masks were not working, and he reported that. And in our litigation, Boeing said that he was wrong, there wasn't a problem. And apparently they told Boeing there is a problem, and they took care of it. Meanwhile, John found out from people who worked there, they didn't do anything. So when you think about a decompression that happens on an airplane, he was really concerned that 25% of the people on that plane would die. And it just ate into him. Every time I talked to him, he would just add, did we get those documents? Do we know whether or not, they fixed that problem? And I would say, no, we don't know.
Investigative reporter Ann Emerson has new information in the death of Boeing whistleblower John Barnett. A close family friend of Barnett says he predicted he might wind up dead.
He wasn't concerned about safety because I asked him, I said, aren't you scared? And he said, oh, I ain't scared. And he said, but if anything happens to me, it's not suicide. I know that he did not commit suicide.
What do you think when you hear that?
Oh, God. I don't know what to say. I just can't believe he did that either. He just was so full of life. Had so much to live for, so many plans. That's what I say. I don't know what happened Thursday or Friday that would have pushed him that far that he would have never picked up the phone and called one of us, because he would talk to us.
Well, had he said that to family members as well?
He said that to his brother and his daughter-in-law.
Basically the same thing, that if anything happened to him, it wasn't a suicide or...
To have him investigate, I think he said, is what he's told them.
And we're waiting for the investigation to finish. We're certainly not going to make any accusations. But, we have to remember that it's not just 7 years that he fought against this. For the 5 years before he retired, he had to put up with the very hostile work environment. The managers that he had continually denigrated him, kept him from promotion, just all kind of things. And then after he retired was when he filed his Air 21 complaint. So he stood up for the public, and that was his main concern, that the planes be built the way they're supposed to be. You referenced earlier about how would you get to the point to where people would jump up and down to assemble an aircraft fuselage. It's hard to imagine a company that would disregard experience, lessons learned, or disregard 108 years of engineering to get to this point. But it comes down to the bottom line.
Money.
Dennis, when you hear him fighting against this so much, what do you think about?
Hero. He stepped up. You know, I'm a spokesman for a pilot union. He spoke up alone, other than the support of his family, and the lives that he is likely saved because of the awareness of this going forward, whether it be on the airplane he worked on, are never ending. And it's just shocking to hear. I can't imagine what he went through from within. You know, we talked about Boeing and their focus on money. Shareholders put their money in the hands of Boeing. On my airplane, passengers put their lives in my hands. Boeing, make that the way you do business.